Hey there, my name is Trevor, and today I'll be narrating the story of Mark Armand, a man who used to be in the Special Forces. Mark had an amazing revelation during his near-death experiences. His story shocked many people due to the predictions he has told. Before getting started, make sure to leave a comment with your name and city for good luck. With that said, let's listen to Mark's story. My name is Mark Armand, and I'm excited to talk about my life-changing near-death experience. Let's start with the day my neck broke. At a lake in Saluda, North Carolina, it was a calm summer day, and I was floating in the water. I was amazed by the fluffy white clouds in the sky and the trees that were growing along the edge of the lake. A wave of thanks washed over me, and I was very grateful for this moment. This feeling of thanks came from starting to meditate 7 years before my NDE. In an earlier part of my life, I was an Army Ranger in the U.S. Special Forces. When I got out of the service, I learned how to meditate. This helped me find the peace that I'd been missing while I was in Iraq, where I had to deal with the harsh realities of war. Through my own experiences, I learned that when I trained to fight, I met war, but when I trained for peace, I was able to enjoy peace again in that calm lake. I sank into serious meditation for a while floating in the water, and then I chose to swim to the dock. When I got to the wooden dock at the lake where I was meeting up with friends, I saw that other people were having a great time using a blue water slide. I eagerly joined the line and climbed the stairs to the top of this old blue plastic slide that looked like something from a summer camp movie. It wasn't very sturdy, but it looked fun anyway. I was at the top of the hill when the person ahead of me jumped in head first. I waited calmly for him to get off the slide. I did what they did without giving it much thought and jumped down the slippery surface. As the water fell all around me, I felt a short burst of excitement. But when I quickly jumped off the end of the slide and into the lake, my arms automatically went behind my back. I was able to take my hands off my face in that split second, but it was too late. I hit the lake bottom hard because I didn't know that the water there was only 2 feet deep. A broken neck was caused by the contact with the sand and rocks. During that moment, I clearly heard a voice inside me telling me to slow down. I started meditating again right away, even though I was in the worst pain I had ever felt. At first, it wasn't clear where the pain was coming from, so I thought I had been hit by lightning. It started in my neck and went all the way through my body. It took me a moment to realize that I had just hit the bottom of the lake. It was hard for me to breathe when I stood up in the knee-deep water. I stumbled forward and saw something about the size of a basketball-sized, ball-shaped light shining in the air. In my confused state, I barely noticed them. But now that I think about it, I think they were probably entities or beings. I was very close to dying at that very moment, and I had a sense that when our present life comes to an end, these spirits, angels and guardians, gather to get ready for the next one. As I stumbled out of the water, I made it to a bench where my friends saw right away that something was seriously wrong. Even though I didn't know my neck was broken yet, I was very aware of how much pain I was in. They helped me lie down on the bench, and because I had been trained as a military doctor, I knew I was going to be shocked. I knew I had to keep my feet off the ground and raise them up. As I lay there, I heard a voice inside me say, "You need to leave now." So, I told everyone who could hear that I had to leave right away. I tried to push myself off the bench, but I found that one side of my body was partially immobile at that moment. I didn't get up. Instead, I fell off the bench and hit my face on the dirt. This made a lot of things happen around me. I felt hands grab me under my arms, lift me up, and lead me to a car. We sped toward the hospital on the 40-minute drive there once we were in the car. When I got there, after scans, the medical staff told me I had badly broken my neck by crushing the bones in my vertebrae. They warned me that there would have been nothing to support my head if the car had stopped quickly, and I would have died. I was told that I would need emergency surgery, which would need an expert team because it would be so complicated. Because of this, I had to stay in the hospital overnight, and the surgery was set for the next day. Even though it sounded really painful, I was meditating, as I had learned from masters and monks in monasteries. My plan was to just be aware of how my body felt without fighting them or trying to get away from the pain. I wanted to be fully present with the pain. As I did this, something amazing happened. The energy changed. It was like a fire was burning inside me, but I was able to live with it, like riding a wave. When you're surfing, you're floating on top of the wave, but if you fall in, it can be very rough. It got to the point where the severe pain in my neck spread all over my body. I didn't just see it as pain, though. I saw it as a deep change. I turned down morphine when it was offered to me and chose to stay in pain instead. I thought it was important to be very aware of every breath if these were my last moments. So, while I was lying in that hospital room, I focused on my breathing and enjoyed the experience to the fullest. After a few hours, the pain was too much to bear. I felt like I had slipped off my surfboard and was now falling through the pain waves. I finally gave up and reluctantly agreed to take morphine. When it was administered, a strange thing happened. As I lay on the stretcher, it felt like the nurse was slowly turning down the lights. I thought I was being pulled into a cave and disappearing into the distance. At that very moment, I realized I was really going to die. The quick rush of morphine was too much for my weak body to handle, and my heart stopped. The scary flatline sound came from the monitor behind me, and I could hear it clearly. I became scared when I saw nurses running into the room. Their bodies could be seen from the very end of the tunnel, which seemed to go on forever. When their fear mixed with mine, it surrounded my body and woke me up in some way. I could feel myself being pulled back down the tube and back into my body. This was the first time I felt like I was leaving the physical world. It was the start of my near-death experience, which would last all day the next day. As I got ready for surgery the next day, I was lying on the bed again with a neck brace around my neck. In 2020, at the height of COVID-19, I was given a mask to cover my face. Unfortunately, the neck brace made it so that the mask kept slipping up over my eyes. This made me feel very cramped, like I was stuck in the smallest meditation cell I had ever seen. As the nurses put the mask back on, I asked them where my body would be taken. I felt like that voice inside me that I had heard at the lake was telling me to ask this question. "We'll be taking you to surgery," they said. I said, "No, it's crucial for me to know precisely where my body is going." They did what they were told and described the route. Down the hallway, into an elevator, up to a certain floor, and into a certain room where the surgery would begin. They told me that afterward I would be taken back down and wake up in the same room. Lastly, I was asked to sign a paper with a hand that could still move. I understood that when I woke up, I might not be able to move at all, and that I might not even make it through the surgery. As the doctors started giving me the medicine to put me to sleep, I clearly remember standing at a doorway and floating in the air, surrounded by darkness with stars twinkling in the distance. There were 6 huge beings of light in front of me. Each one was about 11 feet tall. At least from my point of view, the opening itself seemed to be 15 feet tall. When I was in this state, I was totally separate from my body, and these beings were very wise. During what turned out to be a 6-hour surgery, we seemed to have a long chat, but I was told not to remember what we talked about or what was told to me. It's interesting that parts of these memories started to come back to her after the surgery. We came to a deal while I stood at that doorway and talked with these celestial beings. For the first part, it said that I wouldn't remember what we talked about or what I saw. If I did, there would be so much information that I'd never stop talking about it. As part of the second part of the deal, I had to do the work. I didn't know what that meant at the time, but after I got home from the hospital, I started to figure out what my real goal was. As I stood at the doorway, I saw beautiful, luminous beings. The huge amount of energy around them made their cores look dark. My spiritual senses couldn't fully understand what they were made of. All I could see were their brightly shining edges. A bright white light spread out into a calm blue around the edges. One being, with a very male energy, came forward to talk to me. They were joined by 5 other beings, some of whom felt feminine and others masculine. All of them gave off a deep sense of love and knowledge, and their energy seemed to get me ready for something I didn't know. As we said our goodbyes and ended our talk, my spiritual body was gently turned away from them. This made me go back down a tunnel toward Earth. Not long after, I saw my body lying on a bed. I felt like I was running, but I looked like a rubbery shape or a spinning pinwheel. I was bright and shiny, like a body of colorful energy. As I moved toward my body on the stretcher, I felt a wave of happiness that was almost euphoric and quiet. When I saw my body again, I opened my eyes right away and started moving my feet and hands. At that moment, I realized two very important things that made me feel very thankful. First, I wasn't dead, and second, I wasn't paralyzed. They gently told me to calm down, telling me that I needed to do so since I had just finished surgery. After giving my body time to slow down, I spent the next 3 days in the hospital before going home. It was hard for me to move around and get better at home. But about a month after I got back home, the task these beings had told me about started to come true. I really wanted to sew, and I wanted to embroider a tiny rose on a small piece of fabric with needle and thread, even though I have no art background and was in the service. Right now, this rose is in the middle of a fabric I made. As I pushed the needle through the cloth, I felt filled with joy and peace. I was really enjoying the process and was happy the whole time I sewed. Once I was done with the rose, I embroidered a little dog, then a tree, some flowers, and a butterfly. Along with adding more fabric parts and sewing, I started to see the visions that those bright beings had given me. I also started to remember a past life in which I lived in Sri Lanka as a Buddhist monk. It's interesting that I just returned from a trip all the way to Sri Lanka, where I visited a small lagoon island that reminded me strongly of that past life. In that life, my monk name was Nimali, and it's still the name I go by now. I was a soldier from the UK in World War II in that other life as well. During the chaos of war, I came across Buddhist books that made me want to become a monk. Also, in this life, when I was in Iraq, I found inspiration in the same books. This led me to start meditating, which in turn led me to become a Buddhist monk. When I went back to Sri Lanka, I ended up on the same small island, Pogus Dua, which is also called Coconut Island. The peaceful scenery made me think of the past. I got to this island in a small skiff and walked barefoot down a path. That's where I met a Buddhist monk. He asked me why I was there because he was interested. It was about making a tapestry, and I told them that I had been a monk on this island in a past life. He then said, "I remember being here in a past life, and I remember being your teacher." This blew my mind. It was amazing to realize that we had shared memories from many past lives. This experience helped me better understand that we live human lives, leave our bodies, and sometimes come back in different forms, like spirits, angels, or something else. I understood that we are not the same as we were in past lives, even though life itself goes on. The energy I had was different even when I was a soldier. I've changed, and I will continue to change. As I started sewing again, this was still in Asheville, North Carolina, not long after I hurt my neck, I felt a great urge to go to Costa Rica. There, under the palm trees on the beach, I kept sewing and started to think about one of the dreams I had when I was close to dying. A lot of people who have had NDEs say they went to a hall of records, which is also sometimes called the Akashic Records. They talk about shelves of books that go on and give people the chance to pick up a book and learn about one of their past lives. Some people have this experience, maybe because they are more artsy or less interested in reading. Once they get to what is called the tapestry room, they see a beautiful tapestry making itself. Each thread represents a person or a spirit. Some threads are darker and less pure, representing less positive experiences, while others are bright and pure, representing better vibrations. If you look more closely, you might see a thin black thread that looks sickly next to a thick golden thread that looks like a rope. But when you look at the whole fabric from a distance, you can see that all the threads are working together perfectly, and there is nothing wrong with them. I've learned that the message I keep sending through my sewing, something I've been doing while meditating for almost 4 years, is relevant to the times we live in now. It may seem like the world is full of bad things like violence, chaos, and pain. But there are also many beautiful and meaningful times. People share love with their children, friends, and elders through yoga, meditation, singing, and rituals in other places. The richness of our human experience is shown by this duality. If you take a step back and look, you can see that we are all connected in a big way, with each of us being a unique and important thread. Each thread is very important to making something very beautiful. Though our bodies can make it hard to see things clearly, near-death events can help us see things in the bigger picture. We don't have to be close to death, though, to gain this kind of understanding. We can do it through mindful meditation and quiet reflection. The lesson for the future tells us not to be afraid because we are all exactly where we need to be and choose to be human for a reason. It's meant to be that you're watching this because you have a unique life. As we all work together on this journey, the healing our world needs will come from each of us. There is hope for the future. There may be more death and bloodshed, but there will also be a lot of beauty, healing, and unity. I see a rising trend of people putting down their electronics and getting together in real life to share their energy. Also, it's likely that lost skills like the natural ability to heal ourselves and each other will come back to life. Spending time in nature is one of the most important things we can do now and in the future. It's important to connect with the peace and quiet of nature. Whether you're walking through woods, swimming in oceans, or enjoying the calm of rivers and lakes, nature changes at its own steady pace, even as the world changes. Trees and water are changing their vibrations, and by getting back in touch with nature, we can center ourselves and keep from being swept away by the bad energy around us. Seeing the world as a body can help you understand it better. Cities that are in war or destruction are like scabs or wounds, while nature is like the skin that heals and grows back all over the world. It's easy to think the whole world is sick if we only look at these wounds. By looking at nature and doing things like taking care of trees, planting small gardens, and enjoying the beauty around us, we help heal and renew the earth. What I want to sow and say is the idea of a calm garden in the end. One way to look at the earth is as a big yard. Each of us helps to make our surroundings beautiful. By taking care of flowers and plants, we bring peace to everyone who sees them. In the opposite direction, we can turn this garden into concrete, roads, and factories, which might make people feel uncomfortable. The steady hum of cell towers and the vibrations that come from them can make you feel anxious, which isn't the best way to honor this garden. My message about growing a peaceful, lovely yard stays the same as I continue my sowing journey. This way of seeing the world will spread faster if we all do it together. Our planet needs repair badly. The world has a natural order to it. Sickness comes and goes, letting the earth heal itself. We can learn how to help heal ourselves, our relationships, and our little garden by tuning in, meditating, and accepting peace. We can then share this beauty and peace with others. I have good news for the future. We may be going through some tough times, but I liken it to the journey of an alcoholic who hits rock bottom, wakes up, and changes their life, becoming healthy and inspiring others in the process. I think that the world is also healing, and as we all heal, we will inspire those around us. Your question about whether I still feel the presence of the 6 beings I met and whether they have a message for the future is interesting. When I think about it, I get slight chills and a nice feeling, which shows that they are still there. I often feel them, especially when I'm talking to my family or friends about happy things. I might see them as small diamond-shaped lights hovering nearby, usually around the heads of the people I'm talking to. When I'm sewing by myself, I sometimes see a flash of light that makes me feel better, because it reminds me that they are close. Even though they don't have bodies and we live in this 3-dimensional world, I see them as focused points of energy that briefly light up my surroundings. Their presence makes me feel safe and is very nice. As I tune into those beings now, I can clearly hear the word for the future. This is not the end. Instead, we are at a turning point of huge change, and the beauty that lies ahead is beyond our present grasp, and for good reason. If we keep our inner peace, we can match ourselves with this coming beauty. Setting aside time each day to sit quietly with our eyes closed, hands crossed, is the most important thing we can do. We should just be aware of what's going on around us without fighting it or wanting it to be different. In fact, the future is not only bright, it's also the next step in the right direction. We all have the strength, spiritual power, love, and link to the source that we need to get through these tough times. We're all here for a reason, and we're all making this trip happen together. We live in a very interesting time that gives me chills. Think about how we're connecting right now. I'm just a guy sewing in Costa Rica, but we're sharing our thoughts from far away. When we were younger, mass media shaped how we saw the world. They often showed a skewed version of events in order to make money or push a certain story. But as more of us realize that our main job as humans is to love and bring peace to the world, we start to share these lessons again, which sparks a powerful spiritual energy. Serendipity goes up a lot, and connections form very quickly. People don't have to meditate for a lifetime to achieve this. Sometimes all it takes is one moment of silence. The word from the beings of light I met is one of progress, a promise that spiritually things will keep getting better. We're here to grow and learn, so let's take the lessons that come our way.